Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Pramachi. Welcome back to a brand new video. Now today, I'm finally doing it. It's been about 2 years since I've done a video similar to this, but today I'm going over my top 20 manga series of all time. That is right, I recently went through every single manga series that I've ever read and or am currently reading. I ranked every single one of them, and today in this video I'm going to be sharing the top 20 manga series that made the cut. And I opted to go with a top 20 video rather than something like a top 10 video, just because there are so many amazing manga series that I've read that I want to talk about, and I feel like doing a top 20 video would just be more fun for me personally, getting to talk about all these amazing manga series that I love so much. And I feel like you guys would also be better off because, you know, you're getting 10 additional manga recommendations that come highly recommended from yours truly. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So a few things before we get into the video. Of course, this is my personal subjective opinion. All my opinions about these manga series are my own personal ones. We all have our own manga opinions. So if you agree, disagree, or just want to continue the conversation, feel free to do so respectfully in the comments below. Make sure to leave your own top 10, top 20 manga lists. I'm very interested to see how our tastes overlap and what you guys also enjoy. But with all of that being said, without any further ado, let's get right into the top 20 manga list. Alright, so starting off the top 20 list at the number 20 spot, we have a manga series by one of my favorite manga of all time, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are expecting this manga series to be a little bit higher, but that just goes to show how much insane quality we have the rest of this list. The series at the number 20 spot is going to be Takehiko Inoue's Real. For those of you who are not familiar, Real is Takehiko Inoue's most current and I believe ongoing manga series that he's currently working on about wheelchair basketball. And while you definitely could say that Real is a wheelchair basketball manga at heart, there is a lot more to the story than just that. This manga is really all about personal development, you know, becoming a better person, chasing your dreams no matter what obstacles lie in your way. I'm a pretty big fan of basketball myself, but wheelchair basketball was something that I really had no experience or knowledge about, and this manga also just opened a window into a completely new sport that I was not familiar with. So when you combine the awesome wheelchair basketball action, these characters that you just love to see develop and grow, as well as some very real human emotions, you get an absolutely fantastic manga that I would recommend everybody go check out. So if you haven't read Real as of yet, I would highly recommend you go and give it a read. Next, coming in at the number 19 spot, we have Tenpenshu by Hiroki Endo, the manga behind Eden It's Endless World, which you may end up seeing a little bit later on this list. But Tenpenshu is a 2-volume short story collection by Hiroki Endo, and I'm not really sure how exactly to describe these short stories. Many of them take place in the future, deal with sci-fi. Some of them are just very bizarre, but the common theme with all these stories is that they give you a very human feeling. And that's something that I really value when reading a manga series. When I'm looking at these characters, seeing how their lives unfold, if it feels like these could actually be real human beings with emotions that I've felt or can imagine, then that just makes me all the more immersed and engaged with the manga. I won't say too much else about Tenpenshu, but if you're looking for a short, engaging, philosophical, thought-provoking manga series that is drawn brilliantly by one of the best manga of all time in my opinion, definitely give Tenpenshu a read. Coming in at the number 18 spot is a manga series that I actually hadn't even read until about 2 months ago after being on my radar for some time, a vastly underrated manga series that just not enough people are reading and talking about. That manga is none other than Twin Spica. What it's about is this girl who I believe goes into college to become an astronaut. You know, she's just absolutely obsessed with the stars in outer space. And similar to Real, it's basically just a manga series about this girl, you know, trying to achieve her dreams, though she overcomes many obstacles that she has to deal with. You know, she doesn't let it stop her in attaining her ultimate goal. It's a really wholesome slice of life manga series with some very interesting twists that you don't often see, such as some very sad moments that I won't spoil, as well as a supernatural aspect that's very interesting to read about. This manga series is just absolutely heartwarming and completely enjoyable. Not enough people are reading and talking about Twin Spica, so my message to you is go out, read Twin Spica, because this series just needs so much more love than it's currently getting. Coming in at the number 17 spot is another manga series that takes place in outer space. I've talked about this in my previous, I believe, top 10 video about 2 years ago. That is Makoto Yukimura's Planetes. Surprise, surprise, we have another manga series that I really resonate with and feels very human to me when I was reading it. You know, on the surface, this is just a manga about these people on this spaceship, just basically picking up space junk, kind of like a slice of life. But the more you go in, the deeper you get. These characters feel like they could be very real people with their own relationships and emotions. This manga also tackles some pretty tough subjects such as parenthood, racism, political corruption, the human condition, mental illness, it's all there and it's done just absolutely perfectly. Of course, Makoto Yukimura is much better known for his other series, Vinland Saga, which I'll get into a little bit later. Spoiler alert, but I just enjoyed so much. It's definitely a series very close to my heart. If you haven't read it, it's only 2 omnibuses long. Definitely go check it out. Alright, so coming in at the number 16 spot, we have another manga series by one of my all-time favorite manga creators. That is going to be none other than Goodnight Punpun by Inyo Asano. Goodnight Punpun is basically a manga series that needs little to no introduction. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of it and or have read it. It's basically one of the most infamous manga series ever created. And it's an interesting series for me personally because, going in, I expected it to be, extremely sad and depressed like people say it makes you. But these early volumes, I found myself relating to quite a lot with what Punpun goes through. And then as our main character grows up, instead of being sad, I found this to be more like a thriller manga that just had me completely absorbed and wanting to see what was going to happen next and how these characters were going to end up. And it's for all these reasons that Goodnight Punpun was just such an interesting, engaging, and thought-provoking manga for me personally that I really, really enjoyed. Alright, coming in at the number 15 spot, we have another underrated manga series that's just an absolute timeless classic in my opinion. That is, of course, Sho Fumimura's Sanctuary. Sanctuary is basically a manga series about these 2 brothers, I believe, who escape from the Cambodian massacre. They grow up and they go to Japan, and they're unpleased with the way that the Japanese people are lethargic and unmotivated, and they basically end up flipping a coin to decide which brother will take over the underground scene, being a Yakuza mob boss, and which one will infiltrate the Diet and just become this political overlord. And Sho Fumimura is able to just take these 2 things, put them into one product, and create this extremely engaging and interesting manga series. But probably my favorite thing about Sanctuary is just the classic vintage style that Ryuichi Ikegami's artwork brings to the table. If you guys don't know, Ikegami is one of my favorite manga artists of all time. Everything he draws just has this classic style to it that I really enjoy when he draws cars, these gang leaders in fancy suits holding big guns and stuff, It's just drawn so well, very nostalgic. So if you're interested in reading a manga series about politics and the Yakuza underground scene kind of forming into one manga series, then I would highly recommend you go out and check out Sanctuary. Alright, coming in at the number 14 spot, we have my favorite Inyo Asano manga ever. That is, of course, Dead Dead Demons Dead 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 Destruction. Dead Dead Demons is by far one of my favorite sci-fi manga series, or just sci-fi stories of all time, and I haven't even read it to completion yet, though I do think it's finishing pretty soon here. But Dead Dead Demons is basically about this group of girls living in Japan, and there's this massive spaceship, I guess, floating above the city of Tokyo, I believe. And, it's just basically this impending doom that they constantly have lurking over them. But these girls basically just go about their lives, a typical slice of life manga in the first couple volumes, but eventually it just becomes so much more complex with different details, characters coming into the mix. It's just so interesting and just an absolute pleasure to read. There's also a little bit of a political skew to the story as well, with things such as immigration, vigilantism, I guess, and just the overall manner in which the media and politicians present themselves. A very interesting series that's extremely relevant in today's world, but besides all that, it's just a joy to read, super interesting, thought-provoking. It has some absolutely insane twists that I won't spoil in this video. All I can say is that you need to go and check out the series right now if you're a fan of Inyo Asano. Now, coming in at the number 13 spot, we have an absolute classic that needs no introduction. I'm talking about Takehiko Inoue's Vagabond. In my opinion, Takehiko Inoue is just a master of manga. Every single aspect of all of his series are just flawless, from the absolutely fantastic artwork in Vagabond that is so realistic and detailed, to the interesting development of the character Musashi Miyamoto, who basically starts off in this manga as a wild-hearted upstart sword fighter, I guess, who wants to become the greatest under the heavens. But as the series goes on, he becomes much more mature and self-reflective. So while there is this awesome action aspect with the fighting, there are also some very interesting philosophical and meditative aspects to this series, as well as you go farther down the line with arcs such as the farming arc, which is one of the best arcs in all of manga in my opinion. There are just so many memorable moments in fights in this series, I can't even begin to talk about them. I could probably do its own video, top 10 arcs or fights in Vagabond, which I might actually end up doing now that I think about it. But again, Vagabond is just an absolute classic manga series that I'm sure most of you guys have at least heard of, if not read, and for good reason. It's just a masterpiece, and I highly recommend you go check it out if you have not already. Now, if you guys know me, then you may know that I really don't like reading manga online, but the series that comes in at the number 12 spot is exclusively online, and it kind of opened me up to just how many amazing manga series you just can't read physically. Coming in at number 12, we have Onani Master Kurosawa. Now, I don't exactly know how I can go about talking about the plot of this manga without getting too explicit. It's very weird, but basically about this middle schooler who is kind of an incel, I guess. Let's just say he kind of has this pastime of spreading his white justice to the girls in his class. So yeah, with that being said, this manga series was absolutely not like anything I'd ever read before, but aside from that aspect, there's also another aspect to the series that I personally found very relatable and important. And it was just one of those things I read about in this manga and I could kind of apply to my own life and kind of learn how to go forward with certain things I was dealing with. And I know that sounds really bad after the synopsis that I just gave. I promise it's not that aspect of this manga series, but more of a relationship thing that Kurosawa has to deal with in this manga. And the ending is just fantastic, a great payoff for this pretty short but definitely engaging and worthwhile manga series. I would highly recommend you go out and check out Onani Master Kurosawa, just a great series. So coming in at the number 11 spot, we have 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa. Now you'll notice that this is the only Urasawa manga on this list. Don't get it twisted, I love Monster, I love Pluto, but 20th Century Boys is by far my favorite. I would consider myself a pretty big fan of sci-fi, and 20th Century Boys just has every single thing checked off the list that I look for in an amazing sci-fi series. You have this deep, complex plot with so many plot twists and suspense that you just do not see coming, makes it very interesting, as well as a great and honestly pretty big cast of characters, including the main character Kenji, who I believe is probably the best manga character that I've ever read about. I mean, just on so many levels, he's so relatable and awesome. Now, I personally believe that 20th Century Boys is one of those series that is just so much better if you go in completely blind, so I won't say too much about it in this video, but if you guys enjoyed Monster, which I'm sure a lot of you guys do, and you haven't read 20th Century Boys, definitely check it out. I think it's better. You may not think it's better, but even if you don't, you will agree that this is just a masterful manga series that everybody should read. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally cracking into the top 10 manga series on this list, my personal top 10 favorite manga series of all time. And coming in at the number 10 spot is one of the most action-packed, well-drawn, and most hilarious manga series that I have ever read. That, of course, is One Punch Man. I feel like everybody and their dog has probably watched One Punch Man, the anime, but you're just missing so much of the One Punch Man manga if you're only watching the anime. I've heard the second season isn't really that good, but the One Punch Man manga stays consistently amazing throughout, as well as Yusuke Murata's just absolutely mind-bendingly good artwork. I have no clue how this man can draw so well, but I'm definitely not complaining. Just keep these panels coming and I'll be happy. But aside from the artwork, One Punch Man is just such a fun and enjoyable manga series. Obviously, it spoofs on all the tropes of superheroes and all that stuff, so it's very funny in that regard, but just the insanely awesome cast of supporting characters such as King, White Fang, Garo, Genos, Metal Bat. I mean, there is too many to name. They're all fantastic. They have depth, they have awesome moments, besides just Saitama, who can punch anything to smithereens in one blow. It's because of the amazing cast of supporting characters that I feel One Punch Man never really gets stale, because there's always a character doing something fun or unique or awesome or badass. No matter what is happening in this manga, I find that there's always just something to love about One Punch Man. Alright, so coming in at the number 9 spot, we have a manga series, one of my all-time favorite manga, Taiyo Matsumoto. At number 9 spot, we have Ping Pong. Growing up, I was always a big fan of ping pong, whether I was playing at school in tournaments or just playing with friends. I really enjoyed ping pong. I think it's a very underrated and exciting sport. So just seeing a whole manga series that really captures the vigor and competitiveness of ping pong just blew me away. To me, ping pong is just such a well-rounded manga series that basically has everything that I would ever look for, has a great cast of characters. Though small in number, they're all very deep and have their own interesting feelings and emotions that are oftentimes pretty relatable. Not to mention the great, fast-paced, and beautiful ping pong action that is brought to life by Taiyo Matsumoto with his very unique artwork in this manga. There's lots of tournaments, lots of fast-paced action that just flies right off the page. And the ending of Ping Pong is one of the very few manga to actually make me shed a tear, so it has that going for it. If I haven't said enough great things about Ping Pong as of yet to get you on board, I really don't know what else I can say. Ping Pong is just a fantastic manga. Pretty short, I believe 5 or 4 volumes in these beautiful Viz editions, so I would highly recommend everybody go check out Ping Pong because it's a fantastic sports manga that I feel doesn't get enough representation. Now, next up on the list at the number 8 spot, we have my favorite sports manga of all time. You're probably thinking to yourself, you know, chalking down what I've already said, what's left as far as sports manga go with Real and Ping Pong. If you guys couldn't guess, at the number 8 spot, my favorite sports manga of all time is Takehiko Inoue's Slam Dunk. Now, is Slam Dunk as deep or maybe meaningful as his other basketball series, Real? Absolutely not, but there is just so much that I absolutely adore about Slam Dunk. While the characters may not be as deep as the characters in Real, they're still very enjoyable and do have their own problems that they have to overcome. You know, they deal with stuff like normal people do, like normal high schoolers, so there is that aspect to the series. And there's also that same motivational aspect as we follow Sakuragi, who basically knows nothing about basketball, but seeing him mature and transform into a great basketball player and team member and just get along with others and make friends is just really amazing to watch and really means a lot to me personally to read. But in my opinion, the thing that really sells Slam Dunk is of course the basketball action. Now, like I said earlier in the video, I'm a big fan of basketball, and I don't think that any media or manga has ever captured the essence and excitement of a sport like Slam Dunk has. The basketball games in this manga are just so gripping, entertaining, and fast-paced. Even if you know nothing about basketball, you'll get what's going on and just be so wrapped up into the emotions of the basketball game. And there were just so many hype moments in this manga that just almost had me like out of my chair, out of my bed, whatever I was doing, on my feet in excitement for these characters. You know, when they get a two-handed jam or whatever, it's just so hype and I love to see it. And I know that at the moment that I'm recording this video, Slam Dunk is a little bit tricky to piece together because some of the volumes are out of stock. But once this manga series comes back in stock, and it will, I highly recommend you go and check it out. Whether you're a fan of sports or not, I bet you will really enjoy Slam Dunk. Coming in at number 7, we have my favorite sci-fi manga of all time. If you guys didn't know, I'm talking about Hiroki Endo's Eden, It's an Endless World. Now, this series is just a sci-fi epic through and through, an absolute masterpiece on so many levels. If you've ever wanted a sci-fi manga that you could really just dig your teeth into with so much content and complexities in the story, then this is for you. There are so many things going on, politics, this drug cartel, this virus that turns people into crystals, you know, human-killing robots. It is all here and it's done perfectly. There's probably never been a manga series that's had these deeply impactful and emotional moments that honestly just left me completely speechless. I won't get into any of the specifics, definitely none of those at the end of volume 3, but yeah, that's just an example. That volume just shook me to my core. It was fantastic and just kind of changed me as to my thinking of what a manga series can really accomplish. Probably my favorite part about the series is the artwork. It is super clean and also detailed at times. He has a very unique art style, and the action that he does is hands down the most fluid and exciting action of any manga series that I've ever read. You know, just from panel to panel, you can tell exactly what's going on. It almost feels like you're watching an anime, like it's that animated and fluid. I can't even describe how awesome it is. It's just an absolutely masterful manga on every single level. I only have it at a 9 instead of a 10, just because it does get a little bit confusing with so many things going on. But you know, if you do understand what's going on, it's just a fantastic manga series through and through, and I would highly recommend it to all sci-fi fans. Next up, coming in at the number 6 spot, we have the one, the only Mid Piece. Now, this series was a little bit higher, you know, a couple spots, maybe a few months ago, but as we're reading post-time skip, I'm enjoying it less than pre-time skip. But don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore One Piece. I really shouldn't have to go too much into detail about what One Piece is about and why people love it so much, but the main thing that I really love about One Piece is the cast of characters, the Straw Hat Pirate crew. You know, especially pre-time skip, I feel, you really do feel like you're just a member of the Straw Hats on this ship with your friends, just basically doing all this crazy stuff together, and it's really emotionally impactful for me personally, just because I was so drawn to all these characters, the unique personalities, the comedy aspect. It all just really resonated with me, as well as the great emotional moments, especially like in Arlong Park. The one thing that makes One Piece one of the best shonens of all time is the sheer creativity and scale of it all. There is just so much going on in this vast and definitely vivid world that Oda creates with One Piece. So much so that fans are still formulating theories about all this stuff going on that connects. There's just so much lore and stuff that I definitely haven't even picked up on with my pea-sized brain, but just at that surface level, I adore One Piece and everything it brings to the table. I believe currently I'm about 75 volumes into One Piece, and one thing that I definitely give the series credit for is that I've never been bored and it's never felt stale, which is definitely quite an accomplishment for a series that I've read over 75 volumes of. Oda constantly keeps it new and interesting and fresh, and that's just something that I think keeps One Piece at the top of my list. It's so versatile and interesting no matter what. Alright, so now we are finally into the top 5 manga series on this list. We're really getting to the big heavy hitters now at this point. Starting off at the number 5 spot, we have a series that was previously a couple spots down, but the more I think about the series, the more I realize it's just an absolutely perfect manga. And the manga series sitting at the number 5 spot is none other than Hiroaki Samura's Blade of the Immortal. Blade of the Immortal is just one of those manga series where I just enjoy every single thing about it that I don't even really know where to start or what to say is my favorite thing about it. It's just so brilliant. I guess I would say my favorite thing about Blade of the Immortal is the story. Now, the first few volumes kind of start off episodic, where this samurai who is immortal, he basically kills like 100 cops, so he vows to kill 1,000 bad guys to redeem himself, and he basically hires himself out to this young girl named Rin, and they fight these people, you know, kind of an episodic nature. But once you get to a certain point, this series just takes off and becomes absolutely insane. Similar to 20th Century Boys, I feel like Blade of the Immortal is a series that's best if you just go in blind, as to not ruin any of the plot for you, because it is just that good. But some other things that are great about this series, the artwork is very sketch-like and unique. You know, Samura has a very distinct style, and I think that the artwork and action aspects of the series really set it apart, as well as the fight choreography, which is just brilliant. You know, I can almost remember every single major fight that happens in this manga, and I read this like 2 years ago. I haven't touched it since. It is just that good, and this series has stuck with me ever since then. The ending is one of the best of all time. You know, everything about the series is amazing. Hands down, one of the best manga series that I've ever read. If you haven't read Blade of the Immortal, you need to check it out. So coming in at the number 4 spot on this list, we have an absolute behemoth, a Goliath, a titan of manga. That is, of course, Berserk. Again, this is a series that basically needs no introduction, I'm sure. This is many of your guys' favorite manga series of all time, so I'll spare you the details on what this is about, but it would be an understatement to say that Berserk is one of the best manga of all time. No matter who you ask, they can definitely give credit where credit is due. This has just inspired so many things in the realm of dark fantasy, as well as being just a masterpiece manga in its own right. Every single arc, whether it be the Golden Age, Conviction, Fantasia, Millennium Falcon, you know, any of these arcs is just so distinct and memorable. Personally, my favorite would have to be the Golden Age arc, which in my opinion is the best manga ever written. You know, this one arc, these several volumes, this chunk of manga is just the best thing that I've ever read, and nothing has really impacted me as much since I read this. The amazing artwork is also another drawing point to the series. I'm sure even if you haven't read Berserk, you've seen panels from Berserk that are just so iconic. They almost transcend manga, and Kentaro Miura was really able to create such a vivid and alive world with his artwork and storytelling, which are just second to none. And of course, it's a shame that he passed away, I believe it was last year. Just a tremendous loss that really shook the manga community, as well as fans of all media, really to their core. And though it's not looking like this series will ever be completed at this point, you should not let that scare you from checking out one of the best manga series of all time. I think this is honestly kind of a staple. Even if you're not really into dark fantasy or violent series, I would recommend giving this a try. It's not going to be for everybody, definitely not for the faint of heart, but if you don't read it, I think you're just missing out on one of the cornerstones of manga and one of the most important pieces of fiction ever created. Alright, so now we're on to the number 3 spot, and from here on out, these are manga series that I would give a perfect 10 out of 10 rating. Yes, I am very exclusive with my 10 out of 10s. After having read all this manga, I only have 3. But coming in at the number 3 spot, we have Osamu Tezuka's Message to Adolf. This is a series that I only recently read, probably a couple months ago, and I just could not find a single flaw with this manga. Usually with Osamu Tezuka manga, it's kind of a slow burn, such as series like Buddha, maybe Ayako, MW, some other stuff that I've read. But Message to Adolf was just a series that always had me constantly engaged and wanting to keep reading. If you're not familiar with the series, Message to Adolf basically follows 3 people named Adolf in World War II. You have, of course, Hitler, then you have a Jew named Adolf, as well as the son of a Nazi official named Adolf, and, you know, their paths all kind of cross in one way or another, just seeing how all of their lives are different from each other and how they unfold in this span of history that's extremely important. And aside from these 3 characters, there's also these other characters, especially this, I believe he's a reporter who's trying to solve this mystery with this statue and the murder of his brother. I mean, everything going on at once creates this beautiful story that is just so brilliantly written and paced, and in my opinion probably has one of, if not the best manga endings in any series. Is kind of similar to Monster, but I think just a lot better, especially given the context of everything we've been through in Message Adolf in these 2 volumes. Just so much happens and it all comes back. It's just absolutely breathtaking. Has my highest recommendation. I know a lot of you guys probably bought this series when it got reprinted, you know, maybe a year ago and haven't read it. It's been sitting on your shelf, but now you are hearing it from me. This is a masterpiece manga, one of Tezuka's best series ever created. And I would say it's probably time to take those volumes off your shelf and finally read this series because it is just an absolute masterpiece. At number 2, we have Makoto Yukimura's Vinland Saga. Now, it brings me such joy just to see so many more people get into the series and the manga specifically due to the popularity and well reception of the anime. I haven't watched the anime, but let me tell you, this manga is absolutely incredible. I'm a big fan of historical fiction and this series just takes the cake. Everything that could possibly want, interesting characters and real history, as well as fantastic artwork that really bring this time in history to life right off the page. Makoto Yukimura has fantastic artwork. The action that he draws, the violence, as well as these calm, serene landscapes are just fantastic. We also get to see one of the best character developments of any character in manga, period, that being Thorfinn, who starts off basically as a revenge-hungry monster who's willing to do anything to kill Thorkel, who killed his father, spoiler alert. But then as he kind of becomes this pacifist, there's this whole new twist to this series. It still stays very interesting. I think that the Farmland arc is one of the best arcs in all of manga, kind of like Vagabond. The farming arc is also one of the best. You know, something just about farming and manga just go together. Not to mention the great cast of characters. You have Askeladd, one of the best antagonists in all of manga. You have Thorkel, you have the guy with the spear, who I really enjoyed. Just too many awesome characters and memorable moments to name about this series. It's just great. You know, with these 10 out of 10 series, there's just so much I could say, and for the sake of keeping the video short, as short as possible, I'll just let you guys read this series. If you guys have not read this or checked out the anime, you are definitely missing out. Vinland Saga is just one of the best manga series to ever release in recent memory. And finally, coming in at the number 1 spot, the manga series that I'm sure none of you guys saw coming because I have never mentioned this series in the history of doing YouTube on this channel. I've never once mentioned this series, but now it's the first time for everything. So I'm going to talk about my number 1 favorite manga series of all time, Gantz. If you guys have been around the channel, then you'll know that I was obviously joking. I talk about this series way more often than I probably should, but that is just because I am absolutely in love with this series, of course, being my favorite series of all time. There is just so much to adore about Gantz. This one is not going to be for everybody, but what is in this series just really resonated with me personally. There is a great amount of violence and gore, which may mean I'm some kind of a psychopath, but personally, when I was reading this manga, I just thought it was so fun to read. Hands down, the best thing about Gantz is just the absolute absurdity of it all. If you guys aren't familiar with Hiroya Oku, he's the creator of other series such as Inushiki and Gigant, series that are just absolutely batshit insane. You know, whatever's going on is going to be something like you've never seen before. It's just so off the wall crazy that you really can't compare a series to anything else. And whether the Gantz team is fighting dinosaurs, giant Buddhas, fending off vampires, or fighting aliens that look like an onion, I mean, every single arc in this manga is memorable, it's distinct from its counterparts, and just is a fantastic experience on its own. Every time I record a video talking about Gantz, when I'm watching it back, I just always hate it because I feel like I didn't do the series justice with the way I described it. Hopefully I won't feel that way about what I've just said about Gantz in this video, fingers crossed, but I really don't know what else I can say in this video to convince you guys to give Gantz a shot. It's just an absolute turn your mind off, fun manga series that will definitely stick with you. It's just absolutely amazing and by far my favorite manga series of all time. But anyways guys, that is going to wrap it up for my top 20 manga list of all time. This was probably a pretty long video. My voice is absolutely shot. I did not expect to hurt this much by the end of recording, but you know, it was worth it because I got to share my favorite manga series of all time with you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and we'll check out some of these series if they sound interesting to you. And if you did enjoy this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more manga videos just like this. So yeah, this has been the Prom G. My voice hurts a lot. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and as always, hope to catch you in the next one.